Hello, and welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee at the Superbwoman Incorporated. I'm so happy that you've joined us this evening. We, of course, have another superb woman joining us this evening, but before we get to Amy Powers, and I'll tell you all about her, let me tell you all about the Superbwoman. For those of you who are new, you probably are wondering, what is a superb woman? Well, you know the difference between Superwoman and Superbwoman? Bee. It's all about the bee. And that's what I believe, that women have the power to change this world when they learn to be themselves, when they step into their innate power. You know, the Superwoman motif, let me tell you from experience, it is an unsustainable model. It is all about doing. It's all about what other people are directing you to do or what you think you should do. I have learned from experience that when you take that time to step back, to understand your values, your desires, your goals, your passions, and you craft and build a life and live a life that encompasses all of that, that honors all of that, it is indeed powerful. And you put out positive energy for the betterment of all. I've been fortunate enough on my path to run into amazing women, women who are doing things that are unbelievable. And these are ordinary women who are doing amazing things because they have taken that time to understand who they are. They have stepped into their unique gifts, their unique power. They are truly superb. And it is my intention to help you to meet these women, to hear their stories, to hear how they got from where they started to where they are now, and who's helped them along the way, and what tips they may have for all of us. I know I learned from each one of them, and I use them as my role models and mentors along my own path. So tonight is no exception. Amy Powers is my guest, and Amy and I met introduced through a mutual friend. Amy has a very unique story. She went from advertising to a corporate attorney to Broadway lyricist. Most recently, Amy was the lyricist for Dr. Zhivago the musical on Broadway, and I got to see it. What a lovely production, and the music was amazing. So I'm so honored to have met Amy and have started a friendship with her. So Amy, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Janet. I'm really excited to be here because I have such admiration for who you are and what you do. And I see how through your other shows, I've seen how when people just share their stories, often it inspires change in other people. And that's a real turn on for me. I think it's a big blessing, a big gift that we can give each other. Just by offering information, we can cause inspiration. So Thanks for having me.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks. That's exactly my intention. So I'm glad that it worked for you. So Amy, tell us your story. How did you start off in advertising and end up as a lyricist?
Well, the usual way, I guess. My journey has really been, there's a couple of parts to it, right? Most people that I know me as lawyer turned lyricist. And when you and I were discussing before this show, what I wanted to talk about, I said, there's really a before that part and there's an after that part too.
Right, yeah, that was news to me. So this is even a better story.
And I think it's important for people to understand that you don't just have to do one thing here or be one thing here. And I used my body as a guide. So I'll take you to the before the lawyer part, then I'll take you from lawyer to lyricist, and then I'll take you to Lyricist Plus, which is my last 5 years with a concurrent career as the National Vice President of Arbonne International. So when I graduated college, I went to Vassar College with a degree in cognitive science. I actually found myself attracted to advertising. So I went to New York and I got a job in an advertising agency. And at the time, there was a prejudice against women. This was back in the day, long time ago.
Like
and
Bad Men days, or a little past that?
Yeah, back in the Studio 54 days. And women were only allowed to enter the company as secretaries.
Mm-hmm.
But men were allowed to join as what they called junior assistant account executives. Not very much difference, but really all the difference. And I share that because I think there are a number of people who might be listening who somehow might feel themselves blocked in what they've chosen to do career-wise. There are a lot of unspoken prejudices in the world, right? And this one was against women being in management at the time. So after about 6 months there, I absolutely couldn't go into work anymore. It was just so awful to me because I was being typecast as something that I didn't feel was all I could do. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go back and do an MBA. I thought, well, you know, I'll get into business and then I'll be able to write my own ticket. And what happened was one of those random things where my mother said to me, you know, if you're going back to do a business degree, why don't you think about becoming a lawyer as well? I mean, you argue so much and so well. So I thought about what she said and I thought, you know, why not? Let's do this as an extra thing. Nothing I ever thought that I would do as a career. And I ended up going back to Harvard Law School and I did my MBA at Columbia. I had a fellowship there. And when I got out, I looked around for jobs and I mostly looked around in investment banking and I found my body telling me that the rooms that I was going into were not my kind of people rooms. I just felt a coldness. I was not excited about it. And I thought, okay, I'll just go back to that law firm where I had a summer job. And that's how I sort of fell into being an attorney. Not because I had a passion, but because it was something pragmatic. And of course, it was something that had a very high paycheck and it was a big prestige thing.
Yep.
And those were two things that at the time I thought were critical. What happened was my body told me in no uncertain terms very quickly that this was not for me. Within about a month, I got chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was out of work. I was almost unable to get out of bed for many months. I was very lucky. I found a naturopath who was also a medical doctor. I went through a great healing process. And at the time, everything started to open for me. So I identified during those months that whatever I was doing was not right for me because my body told me so. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I'd even allowed myself to listen. It was sort of like I had to get hit over the head, right? To say, hey, I'm gonna sit you down in bed and you cannot get up until you hear that this is not for you.
Yeah. Amy, you had mentioned when you walked into the investment bankers' offices that your body told you it wasn't the right thing for you. How did you know that? Did you listen to it then, or was it just this vague feeling?
I listened and I found another option. And I think that's what I've been doing my entire life. I listen and I find another option. So really, when I embraced that whole mind, body, spirit connection was during the time of leaving the idea of being a lawyer. I said, I absolutely know this is not for me, but I have no idea what is for me. And that was kind of shocking. But out of the blue, it was gifted to me because somebody suggested that while I was recovering, I write a song. Just try writing a song just to alleviate the boredom of lying in bed all day. And it was a song from musical theater. That person knew musical theater. I said, sure, I'll do that. Why not? Right? And the first time I put the pen to the paper, I had an out-of-body experience. I went into a trance for 3 hours. And when I awakened, there were words on the page. And I knew that whatever that feeling was, I had to pursue it. I'd never had that feeling before. I guess it's like falling in love for the first time. So I knew that it was something I needed to do. And it didn't matter what I had to go through to keep that feeling going. I was going to do it. Wow. So I kept working as an attorney for 2.5 years, but really my mind was elsewhere. And that's when I built up my songwriting.
Wow. So, wow, that's an incredible story. So you were writing songs. Were you writing songs for musicals, for anything in particular, or?
Yeah, my first couple of years were just musicals because that was what was presented to me. Of course, my first song was about a paralegal. Okay, right, what you know. And I spent some time at a fabulous place. I'm very lucky because in every one of my careers, I've had amazing mentors just show up. So in this career, I had the BMI Musical Theater Workshop in New York. It's a fantastic place. It's a 3-year free program that is very selective, and I was really lucky to get in. They saw something in me, and I got to train, and my boss at the law firm said, yes, you can take every Monday afternoon off and go do this. Right? So I started off in musical theater, and my first gig, actually, my first professional job was writing some songs with Andrew Lloyd Webber on a show of his called Sunset Boulevard, which was terrific.
Yeah.
Except that I also got fired from that job. So I thought, wow, okay, good stuff happened, but it wasn't secure. So I'm going to find a way to diversify and spread myself so that the opportunities are not all in the musical theater camp. And I think it's important for people to say, okay, I've got a passion. Now let me protect myself with that passion. So I started to write for pop. I started to write for kids' music. And I continue to this day. I just today came home from the Super Cute Friendship Festival for Hello Kitty, where I've written a song. It's a live tour that's going all around the country and more. You know, I just wrote for Tokyo Disney last week. I do a lot of different things. I write for pop artists. I do all kinds of stuff. And so I'm a big fan of using what you've learned to go further in terms of allowing yourself freedom to play, but also some stability. And I'm sort of glad that I got kicked out of that first job. I'm also glad I still get the royalties from it, but I got kicked out of that job, and it opened my eyes to all kinds of other things I could do in theater. And I did that for a long time. And that's how I ended up doing Dr. Zhivago. So I ended up doing a number of things. However, I don't know if you know what's been happening to the music business in the last 10 years or so. Janet, are you familiar?
Well, I've been hearing that things, they are changing and not necessarily in the artist's favor.
Absolutely true. So the music business has shrunk itself by half in the last 10 years. Not coincidentally, the rise of the internet and free music and Pandora and a lot of places that don't reward artists very much for doing what we do, you know, that's come up, right? So I found myself in an industry that I loved. I had found my passion, but what I wasn't passionate about was the continuing inability to predict my financial future. That just wasn't a good part of the picture. I'd known what it was like to have a big paycheck and something really predictable when I was a lawyer. And then I'd known this sort of up and down of the artist's life. But when I saw the up and down get smaller in its curves, it started not to make so much sense to me, and it started to rob me of my passion, you know, to sort of take away from the joy. And I knew I didn't want that feeling. And once again, I was very lucky. Somebody sent me an opportunity to meet someone else who had been in the music business, who was now doing music and another business. And that other business became my second passion. So Arbonne, that business, allows me to create a 6-figure income for myself and anyone else who wants to learn with me how to do this, but it also allowed me to keep the music jobs that I really loved and give up the things that I didn't, and not depend on the outside world to keep my passion going. I can choose what to do, when to do it, but I'm not 100% all the eggs in that basket. And I think that's an interesting thing for a lot of artists to consider, that there might be more than one way to skin this cat, and that it doesn't mean that you're selling out if you're getting smart. To create multiple streams of income so that you can have passion and purpose. You can find your people. You can still have that joy without having the pressure of financial instability.
You know, I think that's a really good point that you make, especially with artists of all types. I know in my experience working with artists, perhaps the business side is not their strong suit. And so it is difficult to continue to follow your passion and yet, you know, make money and not to get burnt out because you're not making any money. So,
yes,
multiple streams.
A lot of people, I mean, I've seen so many people, especially because I'm in theater often, or with pop singers, or, you know, I see people who are taking waitressing gigs or things that they feel they're the baristas generation, right? That's sapping them, and it gives them less control of their time. I've heard a lot of people complain about not having the energy to do their auditions because they were up late bartending somewhere.
Right.
You know, and also I think it's important for people to have control of their financial futures, because we don't all always want to be doing the same things for our entire lives. You know, maybe for some people it's okay to be a bartender and do your art on the side when you're 25. But not when you're 45 maybe, or 55. I mean, I'm 54 now. So what I'm looking for is a very different thing. And I found that this company has given me a whole new lease on life. And that I recommend, it might not be this company, it might be something else, but finding something that will generate money while you're sleeping is a really good way to have sweet dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, Amy, let's talk about who's helped you on your path, because as you and I both know, you can't do this by yourself. So who's been influential in your life?
So many people. Well, first and foremost, I had amazingly supportive parents who, even though they didn't understand why or how I could even think of shifting from corporate law, real estate finance law, into something artistic, and they weren't themselves artists, they supported me. And I think not that many people are lucky enough to have that, you know, strong a support network right away. I think we all have to find our communities. So I started with that great base, and then everywhere I turned, people offered to help me. The people at BMI were amazing. Then I went to the ASCAP musical theater workshop, and I learned from people like Stephen Schwartz, who wrote Wicked. You know, people volunteering their time. I think that when people are at a certain level of their careers, giving back comes naturally. And I was lucky enough to take advantage of that. I had a similar kind of thing when I started to write pop music, and there were a lot of people in New York City, where I lived at the time, who were with ASCAP, who were doing pop music, and they just came in and said, how can we help you, right? Also, I have a terrific husband. He's in the arts as well. He's an independent film producer, and we understand each other. We understand what that life is like. And so it's always good to go through life with someone who has a sense of humor and a sense of perspective. I had a great coach named Chelly Campbell. I don't know, do you know her? No. Chelly? If you look at www.chellie.com, Chelly Campbell was someone who came into my life just when I couldn't figure out how I was going to make it as an independent lyricist anymore. Just at the time where I hadn't met Arbonne yet, and I was just exploring how to keep going fiscally. She has a series of workshops called Financial Stress Reduction Workshops, and she does them over the net. She has a big following. She's written a bunch of books, things that are very, very helpful. And I remember one of the things in her, I did a 10-week course with her at her house. I was lucky enough that she was still doing it in person at the time. I think now she does everything in a teaching way. And she said, you know, there are really only two kinds of people in the world: your people and not your people. And I realized that I had been spending a lot more time with people who were not my people than I should have. Oh, there's a should. Than I could have. And thank you for reminding me that there really aren't any shoulds. It's I could do this, or I could choose that. I could have more supportive people in my life. I could have a bigger perspective. I could take a risk. So she was one of the people who helped me understand how to access my power. There were a lot of affirmations involved, but there was also a lot of practicality, getting down to brass tacks, telling your story, telling your financial autobiography, and then reshaping your story. So she gave a lot of life coaching, and a lot of that coaching, I found that I now am able to give other people in my Arbonne business, because I basically get paid to life coach. I get paid to show people how if they want to change their brand, they can change their entire life. And everybody has things they need to work through, no matter how old they are, no matter where they came from, no matter what their previous story was, or the story that they're telling people is their story.
Right.
People have stuff. So I'm really grateful to Chelly, because I watched her get deep and real with people, and then I saw the amazing effects it had in their financial and, of course, then emotional lives.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, obviously it worked well for you. So talking about the shoulds,
yes.
What is one should that you have released in your life?
One should is that I should keep doing what I was doing just because I was doing it. I think a lot of people find themselves in that place, and I certainly was one of them when I fell so ill and had to reevaluate everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing about the music. I'll tell you, people tend to classify you and describe you in certain terms, and then it's sometimes hard to get out of. So I've been a lyricist for so long, 5 years ago when I started Arbonne, that a lot of people only wanted me to continue to be a lyricist, no matter what I wanted. And I had to get past the fact that I should allow them to define me.
Right.
When I could allow me to define me.
Absolutely. So that there was that shift for you in between the should, from the should to the could. Yeah. And I talk about that often in my workshops, that it may not seem like a big thing, but languaging is very important.
Essential. And as a lyricist, I can tell you that the small is the biggest difference. Really, people think they're saying something to themselves, but it's a little bit off. And if they just tweak their language, everything changes.
You know, I hadn't thought about it from a lyricist perspective, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that's what you're all about. So absolutely.
Finding the right words is key, especially when you do things like affirmations or self-talk. It's okay to write down whatever you think it is that sounds right. That sounds right. And then say that to someone else. Tell it to yourself a number of times. See how it feels in your body. Does it make you shut down? Does it make you feel more alive and more full of hope and possibility? If it's the former, you might need to tweak your language a little bit. And there are people who can help teach you how to do that.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. So we just have a few more minutes here.
Let's do this a few more times.
A few more times to go around this. So Amy, what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you?
I mean, now that the super cute friendship festival for Hello Kitty is over,
I'm going to have to remind me next year when that comes up. I'm going to have to fly out for that one.
I will. I'll send you something today. I'll post something so you can enjoy. You know, what's next for me is a couple of things. First of all, my Arbonne business is exploding. People are sort of magnetizing to me to have me teach them how to become financially free through this brand. So I'm imagining a lot of that in my life. And by the way, my mentor there, Linda Huntington, amazing. All I'm doing is following what she did for me and being able to pay it forward by giving it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I've decided I'm only working with the people who really please me the most. So one of them is the guy I did my super cute friendship tour thing with, Matthew Tischler. And he and I just wrote something that's coming out for Disney Sea Tokyo, the big Disney park in Tokyo. And we also have something that's coming out for a big group in Japan called Kara. They're a K-pop group that's gone to Japan. And I have another great friend named Alex Goringas, a wonderful producer, and he brought me into to a project with the guy who is an extraordinary singer on Universal, and his name is Harrison Craig. If you get a chance to look him up, he's sort of like a young Josh Groban.
Oh,
and I get very excited about the artists that I work with.
What's his name again?
Harrison Craig. He's a winner of The Voice. What's interesting about Harrison, not only just his talent, but the fact that his story is so inspiring, because when he speaks, he has a tremendous stutter, but when he sings, it's gone, and he just has a beautiful instrument. So that in itself is inspiring to me, and getting to work with people like that, terrific.
And so, I'm sorry, what did you say, Harrison, you're doing with Harrison?
Oh, we just wrote our first song together for his upcoming album, and we'll plan to do a lot of other things together in the coming years. And lastly, I'd like to say I'm very excited about the fact that the Dr. Zhivago original Broadway cast album has just been recorded and it'll be released in late July. One of the things that's so interesting to me is how people have heard this music and in different genres are responding to it. We already have an opera singer who's covering one of the songs. We have an extraordinary young pianist composer. Her name is Emily Baer, and she's doing a classically tinged version of one of the songs.
Wow.
So in addition to taking the show around the world, we're finding that there are markets bigger than we ever expected for what we offered musically. And that's a joy. And I expect that I'll be working more with my composer on that, Lucy Simon, beautiful melodist, and Michael Corey, my co-lyricist on that.
Fabulous. So, we could do a whole nother show, Amy, just on the whole Dr. Zhivago process. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Zhivago was on Broadway, but it closed after a short run. However, as I've learned from Amy, I think there's a song about this, that goodbye is not the end.
There's many songs about that.
Yes.
And but what we've learned about this show is that different markets, different places around the world respond differently. We've already had 4 successful productions of this, and there's already licensing going on outside of Broadway. And I think of that sort of metaphorically as valuable for people who are thinking about what they have to offer in the world. You might not find the perfect market the first time you step out. It doesn't mean that your people aren't there and that they won't love and crave what you have to offer. You just have to find the right place, the right fit for what you are passionate about and what you have to bring.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's a beautiful note to end on. So, Amy, I just want to thank you again for being my guest this week.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks to you for watching us this week. Next week, my guest is going to be Rebecca Bryan Pan. Another fabulous story, an amazing young woman that I met when she was right out of college and starting her first business, which at the same time I was starting my first business and just a couple of years older than her. So it'll be a great show with her. And just following on what Amy said, I just want to tell you about an offering that I have for those of you out there who are working mothers, working outside the home. If you are feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, Not quite the Superbwoman yet. If you're still stuck in the Superwoman, I have a new offering for you, some on-call. I can be your on-call advisor. So watch at the end of this. You'll see a slide with more information for that, and you'll see more information on how to reach Amy in all of her different venues. So thanks for watching, and until next week, have a great week. Have a superb week. Take care.